His Home Depot career spanned 30 years, after which he founded the Launch Pad Foundation, a nonprofit that provides transitional housing and life skills to homeless single mothers and literacy support to at-risk children. In 2019, Mr. Hill was awarded the prestigious National Mentor of the Year Award by the 100 Black Men of America. And he has other accolades that we may get into, but I want to get him on the program. Mr. Kenny Hill, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Ritchie. Good to be here.
Absolutely, brother. So let me start with a basic question that I pose to all candidates. Why are you running for mayor?
Great question to ask all of us. I am running for mayor because we need a different kind of mayor. The things that we're facing, the situation we're in as a city, we need a mayor who can not only do the addressing the crime, the affordable housing, and the things that everybody talks about. We really need a mayor who can bring our city together. We need to get back to a different temperature of conversation in our city. With all that's going on, we need a leader who can bring everybody to the table and let voices be heard and let a more cohesive city be brought forward. Because we're going to face trouble again. Somebody's going to catch something on video that shouldn't have happened again. And it should not result in our city burning like it did when what we've seen and people losing their lives. So for that reason, when I look at the rest of the candidates, there's people who've been in office, there's people with experience, but they're polarizing. They don't project the person who's going to be able to bring Atlanta together. And for that reason, I'm in this race.
You are running as a true political outsider, and you are proud of that designation. And during the last mayoral forum that I co-moderated, I remember you talking about how that disconnects you from special interest. Explain why that's important to you.
Yes, sir. That's critical, and I want to get into a little more because your last segment you talked about democracy being in trouble.
Yeah,
and it's correlated because what's happening right now, Dr. Ritchie, is only 5 candidates who are either have already been in office are being invited to a majority of the candidate forums now. There are 14 people running, but that forum that you were at and you moderated was one of the few that invites everybody. So now they're already limiting who the public will see in forums. And how can that be a democratic way of selecting leadership? If every vote counts, then every voice should count. So that whole political aspect is going to the dogs, man. It's going the wrong way, and we need leadership that will challenge that and say we need to stand for what's right. So that is why I announced it that my program is different. I'm only taking donations up to $99. Because why? Because I want to make decisions based on everybody in Atlanta. What's the right thing for every citizen? Not who's lined my pockets, who's filled up my campaign coffers. Because that's what happens. The people who have the money, have the influence, have the access, and that's how decisions get made. And that's why Atlanta has this disparity. We got some of the wealthiest companies here, but we still got people cannot get out of poverty in their whole lifetime. And that should not be so.
Let me ask you this, because with a contribution method or matrix of $99 and nothing else, that also means you do not have to report who contributes to your campaign. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. And so if it's, and so you're not reporting. So somebody gives you $99, you're not reporting, which may be a wise move because there are some people who will give anonymously because of how the city works, how politics works in the city.
Exactly.
Are you disclosing those names, or are you going to use the power of the 99 under rule?
No, I'm not disclosing any names that are $99 and under.
Okay.
So that's true. So it's truly a investment in leadership that's going to represent everybody.
Okay. All right, I got more on the other side. We're coming to a break. I have with me candidate for Atlanta mayor. Remember, this is an important job. Mr. Kenny Hill, he's running. His campaign slogan is change worth finding. We got more. All right, don't forget, get your questions ready for Q&A. 404-892-2703. Realest Man on Radio. This is my Making of a Mayor series. I have today Atlanta mayoral candidate Mr. Kenny Hill is on the program. Mr. Hill, thank you for remaining on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For those who are listening, you can call us up and pose your question directly to this mayoral candidate, 404-892-2703. Mr. Hill, obviously one of the hot agenda items in this political season is crime. But I want you to answer this question, not only with your platform and remedy to decrease crime, but also what is your stance as it relates to police reform? 95% of Americans believe that some level of police reform is necessary. 58% believe that it must be dramatic in order to be effective. But what are your thoughts about those two items, decreasing crime and holding police accountable through common sense police reform?
Absolutely. Police reform is needed, and it has to be done holistically from the very part of somebody joining the force, their actual candidacy as a candidate, and being trained the right way, and then followed up all through what they're doing when they're on the force. And one thing that it's really not being done now that I would do in my administration is I would have everyone who enters the police academy, they would be required to serve. They was in the communities that they're going to work in, volunteer in the schools, understanding the kids, helping the kids, tutoring is what I do with the 100 Black Men. It's amazing the impact you have on the community and young people. The police officers, while they're being trained to serve and protect, also need to be exposed to the power of invested in the community. So it's a lot different to show up in a community on a call that you have served in, that you have put your blood, sweat, and tears into, and then respond to the need or to the call in a way that is going to end up being justice versus somebody overextending their role or having excessive force or what have you. So we need to indoctrinate people in the communities, not just give them a badge and training and say, now you go do your job. So we have to do reform, but it has to be change that impacts people at their core. Because if people are raised in a way that they don't value at certain things, you can't sit them down in the classroom and then think that value is going to sink in. So they have to be weeded out, or they have to be exposed to this is how and why you are to serve and protect these communities. So I'm very much in favor of instilling that into our police force in Atlanta.
What's your plan to decrease crime?
So we have to, I've said it before, we cannot arrest our way out of crime. We have to invest our way out of crime. And that means hiring officers is only one aspect. And you can't just focus on how many people you're going to hire as officers and think you're going to unleash this 2,000-plus strong police force on the city and crime's going to go away, because that's not what's going to happen. So we have to invest in those communities that have been left out and disenfranchised, because that's where the gang activity takes roots. I grew up in that kind of environment, so I know that we're not advocating for the attention of those young people, so the gangs are. And once that happens, now we have to deal with it on the crime issue. So we need to be involved in advocating on behalf of these young people in the schools with the struggles they're facing, with the households who don't have the basic necessities they need, so that you're not facing young people to have a decision to make. Go do crime, or there's no food on your table. Okay. You know, I committed a crime when I was in 10th grade. Mm-hmm. In California, you had to be 16 years old to work. We were running out of food every day. I was oldest of 7. My mom's a single mom. I went to McDonald's and got an application to get a job. And they told me, bring it back. We're hiring. We'll hire you on the spot. You fill this application out and bring it back. You got to be 16 years old. I turned around and said, man, I'm 15, but I got to have this job. the next day, Dr. Ritchie, I went to school and I forged my birth certificate to say I was 16 years old so I could get a job to feed my family. So white collar crime is crime too. But what I'm saying is I was motivated to do something to change my situation. And that's the same thing a lot of these young people are facing. And when the city does not step in and provide a way out, we wait every 4 years to say, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to clean the city up. Oh, we're going to provide jobs. That's political hogwash. It's time out for that. We need a mayor who's going to be engaged with young people, with people who are disenfranchised from day one to make sure this city changes that narrative. And that's how we get a hold on crime. So we can't just arrest folks. We need to be investing.
Well, the arrest method has proven to be ineffective. Chicago right now has more police officers than in the history of their charter. You have increased police forces all across the United States, and cops are being paid more per average than they've ever been paid before. And you still have massive increases in crime in all of those places. You only see decreases really in places like Ithaca, New York, that decided to start hiring social workers and community liaisons in order to deal with some of their 911 calls, because they found that 51% of their 911 calls really did not even need a police officer. They needed a social worker or a community person or just somebody that can help resolve a conflict quickly, not really a cop. You know, anytime you call 911 and you say you need a cop, that means you need a gun. Every situation does not require a gun at the scene, right? So, I get you. I get you in that point. I want you to think about something. We're coming to a break, but I want to pose this question to you, and I want you to have enough time to answer it fully. So I'm going to give you the break to think about it. But you know, not too long ago, the city of Atlanta, by way of the Atlanta Police Department, made national news because a sergeant kicked a handcuffed, mentally ill woman in the head. I think he should have been arrested. He has been fired. But that creates significant distrust, ongoing distrust between community and cop. What would you do to hold cops accountable? I mean, specifically, hold them accountable for criminal behavior. And what are your thoughts about that specific situation that happened in Atlanta to that young lady? I will give you some time to think about it. We'll come back on the other side. You can fully answer that question. We got more. You're Getting Real with the realest man on radio. All right. We still have Mr. Kenny Hill running for Atlanta mayor. Mr. Hill, I posed the question before the break. What's your answer?
Yes, sir. So, yes, I'm familiar with this case. This had never happened. A sergeant in our police force should have much more control over himself than to kick somebody. I know the lady was apparently spitting at him, but that does in any way not justify him kicking her. And so I think that him being terminated was the right response. I think we have to have an established protocol. The officers know what the rules are. If they get out of line, they know ahead of time. Just like with my kids, when they get out of line, they know what the procedure is. They know Daddy gonna talk to you this many times, and then after that, he gonna stop talking. So that needs to be up front with all our officers, and we need to follow that protocol. Whether it's caught on video or whether his partner would have just reported it, it should be addressed the same way. And that's what we got to get to. Not just because it's on video and everybody can see, oh, this is terrible. We need to know if you see something happen that's not right, you are responsible for reporting it. And if you don't, then you're liable as if you were the person who was doing it. And then in terms of somebody pressing charges, now that lady should have the right to press charges if she wants to press charges after it. But for what I saw in the video, he definitely deserves to be terminated. And then anything beyond that will be if that lady wants to press charges against him, then she has the full right to do that.
Let me bring this to your attention because I hear the sentiment, hey, you know, they need to know the rules. We need to enforce the rules. Well, the rules are there. The rules are already there. It is a rule to report abuses like that. That rule exists. That was part of the creation under our current mayor, the current mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. And there's typically a culture to say you do not hit someone in the red zone unless you absolutely have to. And the head is considered a red zone because that could become a potentially fatal injury. It is allowable, but it's allowable under certain circumstances. So the rules are there. So what we're dealing with, Mr. Hill, is a deviation of the rules because of culture. You know, you can have policy all day, brother, but if your culture is adversarial to your policy, your culture will eat the policy alive every day. So
Absolutely.
What do you do to change the culture of policing? Because this is, in my opinion, the only way to save policing, the only way to restore the reputation of the industry known as policing is to transform the culture, not just the policy, but the culture. What are your thoughts?
So it's like I mentioned earlier, when we have communities and officers connected, where officers are not just responding or showing up in communities when there's a call, but the officers are in the communities. And community policing is like a broad word. Yeah, just have officers get out of the cars. But no, they need to be engaged in the community, because it's a lot different to kick somebody in the head when you know that's somebody's daughter. And I know that parents, I know that person, even though they're acting crazy and we got them under arrest, but I know their family. So the culture has to be changed by the way we bring our communities and our police officers together. And that has to happen, and this has to be intentional. And I've done programs like this just for my community in Zone 1 and Zone 4, where we had officer appreciations, where the community and the officers come out to a cookout that I sponsor and get to know each other as people, so that when you have to come do your job, you're doing your job among people that you know. And it's a lot different. You will not terrorize communities that you know. That works for police and people who are in gangs. It's hard to terrorize your own community that feeds you, that helps you, that you know. But
right.
That's how we impact culture. Because like you can't sit somebody in a seat and transmit culture. It has to be experienced.
All right, let me ask you about affordable housing. We got to move on. Affordable housing,
yes,
something that is big in the city of Atlanta as far as a conversation, has not been done adequately. Many times when we talk about affordable housing, the question is affordable to who? Because people have different definitions of what affordable means. How would you tackle the affordable housing issue, and how would you step against the gentrifiers who are creating displacement in this city?
So, and this is something that's gotten way out of bounds already. I'm the only candidate for this office who owns multifamily property. And in this property, I have people who are in transition from homelessness, as well as people who are on Section 8, as well as people who are market rate renters. So I have the full gamut on my property, and I know it works. I know it's profitable. So people can't tell me, the developers can't tell me it can't work, you can't do it. But we have allowed this housing issue to progress to the point where now it's at critical status. We have to, this next 4 years is going to be critical, because if we don't get it right here, then we'll never be able to afford to do affordable housing in the city. So we have about 800 acres that the city owns. There's some more that the school, APS owns, that can be used for affordable housing. We have to make it a priority that we look at, and when you don't allow people the training to get to jobs where they can afford a living wage, then that's when you say, well, what's affordable? Because you could say $1,000 a month, but that's not affordable to somebody who's making $12 an hour. So it's a multi-pronged approach. One, we have to provide the access to jobs that is going to pay people, and we have to stop the fraud in the job training department, where millions and millions of dollars have just been totally wiped out and given back to the federal government, because we're not training people who need the training, so they can't earn enough to afford to live in a decent neighborhood. But affordable housing has to be done so that developers are they're incentivized to make it affordable for the people who live in those communities currently, not who we want to move into those communities, but the people who live there now. And we only have this 800 acres left that the city owns, because the property that's not owned by the city, you can't count on people doing it. They're paying they rather pay the penalty and build luxury than to include affordable housing in their developments. So this is a critical point for this 4 years, that we get somebody in office who's going to make the developers stick to their guns and say, you're going to build affordable housing. It's going to be affordable to people who earn 60% AMI or less, and it has to be sustained. It's not for 5 years. It has to be for the long term. The other end of that, Dr. Ritchie, is we got to start progressing people out of poverty. We can't just get you in housing that you can afford for the day and then leave you there and say we did our part. We got to move people out of poverty in our city. And that has to happen so that they have a chance to be a part of the success and the prosperity of Atlanta.
Are you for community agreements with developers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you this
Absolutely.
specific style of agreement. Many times developers come in, they start massive development projects. They are approved. They got plenty of money to spend. They hire a lot of labor, but they do not hire from that local community. What are your thoughts about having an agreement in place where they must hire a percentage, a threshold of people inside of that local community?
I support it.
Okay.
It's big because those jobs need to be at the same rate as the other people who are coming from outside. It's not a separate pay rate.
Right. Agreed. All right. We got more on the other side. If you have a question directly for Mr. Hill, you can call now, 404-892-2703, 404-892-2703. You're getting real with the realest man on radio, the Rashad Richard Morning Show. All right, welcome back. Realest man on radio, the Rashad Richard Morning Show. We have Mr. Kenny Hill, mayoral candidate, part of my Making of a Mayor series. We will interview all mayoral candidates for your benefit so that you can know their platform and pose your questions. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for remaining on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's go to, I think this is Jerez. Good day. Welcome.
Yeah, this is Juarez.
Juarez. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Mr. Richie, Mr. Hill. My question was really, and really want to get your views on, because I am an Airbnb owner, and I want to get your views on what do you feel about, we are talking about really business owners. It seems like you're really business friendly. How are your feelings on Airbnb and the laws that should be impacted?
All right. Thank you for your question. Mr. Hill, go ahead.
Yeah, so Airbnbs, I use them when I go on vacation. I use Airbnbs, and so I like the convenience. What we have to do is make sure we're doing it where it's not disrupting the people who live in that community. So, and most Airbnbs now, when I look at the ones I'm renting, they make it clear it's not a party house situation. You can't have more than the people who are listed on the reservation on the property. So, and then in all effect, it's probably a little difficult to try to make sure that that's what actually happens. But what I think needs to happen is those properties need to be on a grid. And when a neighbor sees that, there's 15 cars outside of this house, and we know that's an Airbnb, then that's going to be a response. The police is going to be responded at. And then you're also going to have you as an owner know that your tenant or your renter is in violation. So there's nothing wrong with Airbnb as a platform. I use it, and I'm sure it works for you as an owner, but you can't have it where it's disrupting the people who live and got to go to work the next day because somebody's on vacation and they got 15 people parked outside and they're, carrying on. So it's a great concept as long as it stays in the right lane.
All right, so let me say this. This is based on policy, because if you are mayor, you would become a policy director, right? And right now, the policy in the city of Atlanta for Airbnb is that there's a new regulation. They passed the short-term rental property regulation, which basically says homeowners, if you want to engage in this kind of business, you have to register for a license and collect city hotel taxes. They can collect these taxes based on that rule.
Yep.
I'm a big home owner rights guy. okay, because I know that's the biggest investment most people will make in their natural lives is their home.
Right.
So at this point in the city of Atlanta, it's a $150 license fee based on that law. It was actually, voted on and seemed to have a lot of sentiment with city council. But are we infringing? And this is my question to the mayoral candidate. Are we close to crossing that line where we start infringing on the homeowner rights if they are within the decency standards that you're talking about?
So I think we need to track it. I think we need to look at what happens with the number of complaints that we get, people paying the money that's owed to operate that way, but then how are they managing the people who visit their properties? Because if it's a situation where there's no controls around it, we're telling people what they can't do, but they're doing it anyway, then I say we revisit that because it's not working for us. Because the people who live there, and that's the part. Because same way, I wouldn't want my neighbors renting their house out every weekend, and every weekend, you got stuff going on that I don't want my kids seeing. You got stuff going on where I'm trying to go to sleep and I can't. So it has to be a neighborhood first.
Yeah.
But if it can be a business opportunity as well, so be it. When we go on our trips, we don't bother nobody. We're trying to be quiet as possible. We're trying to, relax.
Right. Same here.
Everybody.
And I think that's most people. Thank you, brother. And I think that's most people, right? Thank you so much for that call. And just to provide some context, it was Councilman Howard Shook who initially introduced a ban on all short-term rentals. And what the council did was a compromise to that ban. Okay, brother, we are almost out of time. What I would like for you to do is provide a 1-minute outro as to why people should vote for you.
Yes, sir. So, citizens of Atlanta, you have a choice to make. The mayor that you will elect will change the course of Atlanta with affordable housing, with the public safety policy. You deserve a mayor who is honest and transparent. We cannot afford to have corruption because corruption breeds crime. And when you look at people who are already invested in the system, they already have people that they're looking out for. Where does that leave the rest of Atlanta? We need a mayor who's going to look out for the whole of the city, who's already done the things that everybody's promising. I've done affordable housing. I've done homelessness support to get families out of homelessness and into sustainability. I've provided leadership on a large scale with the Home Depot, where I led the teams of thousands with hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. We need a mayor who is going to be accountable to you as a citizen, a mayor who's going to listen, and a mayor who is also going to respond. I have the conviction to lead the city, but I have the compassion to bring all those who've been left behind along with us. Go to my website, electkennyhill.com. I want to be your mayor.
Brother, I appreciate your time with us today. I will see you soon, man, because I think I have a few more candidate forums to moderate. So I'll see you on the trail.
I look forward to seeing you, brother.
Thanks, sir. All right, we got more. You're still getting real with the realest man on radio, the Rashad Richard Morning Show.